So I had already been a marriage counselor for about 10 years when I embarked on this project of interviewing a number of couples. It turned out to be about 100 couples to see what had their relationship looked like and how had their relationship changed over time. So I went to their homes, I took my tape recorder and asked them a number of questions, but particularly the question, how has your relationship changed from the beginning up until now? And these were couples who had been together anywhere from 3 years to 50 years. So I some really old couples I got to talk to too. And what I came up with was 5 stages that relationships tend to go through: romance, power struggle, stability, commitment, and co-creation. So let me just briefly describe each of those stages, and then we'll get into our dialogue about it.
Okay.
So people think they know what romance is. It's when we emphasize our similarities. Oh, how alike we are. We're made for each other. I've known you in a past life, that kind of thing. Or, you hate anchovies, so do I. You like reading the New York Times in bed, so do I. We must be mated and destined for each other. So everything takes on a special glow when you're in romance. And actually, it's kind of a vision of possibilities in a very healthy way. It kind of brings out the best in both people when you're in that glow of romance. And sometimes you're nicer to each other and you're more open and accepting of one another than you're going to be later on, and for reasons that I'll get into. And that's a good thing. It shows what the potential of the relationship is. Then we get to a place where we feel safe enough and our differences start to feel more serious. Like maybe in the beginning, he drank a little more than I was comfortable with, but I figured, he'll be satisfied in this relationship and he won't be so upset with his life and he'll stop drinking. You have all those wishful thoughts in the romance stage and things don't change. Your partner doesn't change like you hoped they would.
Right.
So that leads to a kind of fall from grace, that feeling of, oh my God, we lost what we had. And I call that the power struggle stage. And that's the stage where you want your partner to change so that you will feel better. That's when blaming goes on, when you say, if only he would tell me he loved me, I would feel more secure, rather than realizing that your security has a lot to do with yourself and your own personal healing, which happens later on in the journey, by the way. I mean, this whole couples journey model is a journey of developing consciously together as two people. I mean, that's what I came to after I learned what these couples had to tell me. I realized, my gosh, coupling is not just to have a happy life together. It's for personal development, personal healing, spiritual evolution, getting beyond your narrow sense of who you are and, oh, if I don't get my own needs met, life will be terrible, my life will be ruined. So I began to see this as I began hearing the journey of these couples. So back to power struggle stage. So power struggle is when I will point the finger at you, or if only she would leave me alone, I would come to her, I would offer my love to her. It's these vicious cycles that marriage counselors see. You withdraw from me, so I run after you more. Well, if you wouldn't run after me so much, then I wouldn't withdraw so much. Those kind of cycles are very prevalent in the power struggle stage.
Right.
What we learn if we stay in communication, and of course we have to use good communication during this, and usually that takes third-party help, or at least reading some books like Getting Real or Truth in Dating, some of my books that help you really communicate through this difficult stage. Once you hang in there long enough with the power struggle stage, for those couples who did this, they find that they got to another stage, which is a very important transition, the transition from power struggle to stability. Now, stability is where you realize that this struggle, where I've been trying to get him to love me better so I would love myself better, this outer struggle is a mirror of an inner struggle. So that's the shift. I realize that I have some ways that I abandon myself. I have not quite come to terms with being alone, and he has not quite come to terms with being really close with another person without losing himself. So this is I'm just using one typical example from couples, but people realize that whatever the two people are struggling about, whether it's saver versus spender or thinker versus feeler, there are all these different polarities that people tend to struggle about. Whatever they're struggling about is a mirror of their own inner struggle.
Right.
We'll be given some examples of this from our own lives later on. So stability stage is when you really take responsibility for your own life. The true meaning of the phrase, take responsibility for yourself, is realized when you make that shift from wishing your partner would change to realizing that if your partner pushes your button, or if you don't like something your partner's doing, it means there's some inner healing that still needs to happen. So many couples actually hung in there through the power struggle and got to stability. And that was a great inspiration to me because I'd never done that yet. Right. When I was doing this research, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So I had no idea. I really learned a lot from the more mature couples that I interviewed.
Right.
So we've gotten to stage 3, stability. The next stage, when people really continue to mature, I call the commitment stage. Now, commitment is when you really become a we system. You become interdependent. You realize that how you treat your partner influences how they treat you. Whether you really are listening to them and tuning into them and being present to them will influence whether they communicate well to you or not. If you're distracted, they may be anxious. So we realize that we're one unified energy field, and the couple is a very good microcosm of realizing that universal truth. I called it the commitment stage because even though people think, well, why is commitment stage 4? Don't you just need commitment to even get that far?
Right.
And my answer to that question is commitment that happens before you've worked through the power struggle stage doesn't really mean very much. It doesn't hold water. Look at the divorce rate. People need to learn certain skills, and they're really important self-responsibility and self-healing skills to get to the commitment stage. They need to do work, inner work, to get there. So commitment doesn't come cheaply, but when it does, then your commitments to one another or your commitments beyond one another, they really mean something. Before that, you can make agreements and promises, but they're not really that substantial. But after you've worked through a lot of these differences, then you and I can really make plans together and actually get to the 5th stage, which is the co-creative stage. And that's the stage where we put our talents together, or our interests or our gifts together, and offer something up to the world based on our unique personalities and our unique lessons in life.